Hashem Naaseh v'Natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Habayim. We're back here on our Tuesday night Shiur, the Iggeret HaGra, the new series. We are now in number 3 in the series. First two, Baruch Hashem, got a lot of good feedback. Bezrat Hashem will continue. Tonight's Shiur will be for Ilui Nishmat Shimon ben Wolf. And also for a refuah shlema for Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Orit bat Ilana, Talia bat Sarah, Yitro ben Avraham, David ben Esriya, Doris bat Jora, and also for a Atzlacha Rabba for Yitro ben Avraham, Oshri ben Doris, also refuah shlema for Oshri ben Doris, Atzlacha for Gabi ben Doris, Elad ben Doris, David ben Esriya, Joshua ben Noach, Zivug Agund for Netanel Yosef ben Noach, Shaul ben Farzane, Marsha bat Julie, Ayla bat Marsha, Samuel ben Marsha, Cephas ben Marsha, Alexander ben Marsha, and Reuven Chaim ben פאלה פארל. הקדוש ברוך הוא יברך אותם בכל מכל כל, חיים ארוכים שלמים מלאים תורה, מצוות, גמילות חסדים, נחת וברכה להם, to them and to all of the others that continue to help us, continue to watch our lectures, continue to learn from them and improve themselves, as the Baruch Hashem is our, not only our responsibility but also our obligation to continuously work on ourselves. Sometimes we succeed better than others. Sometimes our prayers go straight up to heaven because we tried so hard to connect our heart to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and sometimes our actions are better, but sometimes they're not. But as long as a person continues to try to get better, continues to learn how to get better, surely they're going to get better over time. And the more effort a person spends, the better he's going to get. The problem that we always have is that we say a lot and do little. And this week's parasha, Parashat Ba'alotecha, we have a very interesting teaching in the first chapter, in chapter 8, first chapter of the parasha, chapter 8, verse number 4. It says, "V'zeh ma'aseh hamenorah, miksha za'av adherecha, ad pircha mikshahi. מקשה כמראה אשר הראה אדוני את משה, כן עשה את המנורה." So here the pasuk says that this is the workmanship of the menorah, hammered out in gold, meaning it's a single solid piece of gold. From its base to its flower, it is hammered out, according to the vision that Hashem showed Moshe, meaning that Hashem actually showed at Mount Sinai. He actually showed Moshe Rabbeinu what the menorah is supposed to look like. So did he make the menorah. So here the Chachamim said, wait, so who made the menorah? Moshe Rabbeinu or Hashem? The question is very simple. It says he made the menorah. But we find out that in reality, Hashem made the menorah. So how come it says he made the menorah as if Moshe Rabbeinu made the menorah? Here Kadosh Baruch Hu is trying to teach us a lesson that we learn in Pirkei Avot, that tzaddikim say little and do much. Say little and do much. Meaning that tzaddikim are not the people that are going to promise, listen, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do, and don't, they don't do much. The tzaddikim say, listen, we're going to have a such and such, we're going to have a shiur on such and such day. We're going to raise some money for some people. We're going to do this much chesed. We're going to do this mitzvah. We're going to pray. They're going to say different things they're going to do, but that's it. They don't go into too much details and spend so much time and tell people all the things. Why? Because, listen, let me just focus on doing. And let HaKadosh Baruch Hu decide all of the details. Because the people that worry too much about the details, unfortunately, not only do they bring ayn hara on themselves, but also they bring ego to themselves, arrogance in themselves. And this is one of the things that it's highly recommended for people that are in the business world and in the marketing and doing different things. Don't spend too much time looking at the numbers to the extent where you're micromanaging the numbers instead of micromanaging the production. Focus on producing good things, and B'ezrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give you the results. But unfortunately, sometimes people worry too much about the details to the extent where all they want to talk about is the details of all the things they want to do and how they want to do it and how they want to do it. And in reality, they don't end up doing much. Now, if this is just in the business world, it's not good. It's not going to help you succeed in life. You'll become one of the losers of the world that likes to talk about a big house and a big building and lots of cars and lots of jewelry, even though you're living out of your mother's basement. And there's a lot of people like that where they talk a lot. They talk a big game about how they want to do all these different things, but in reality, they're not even ready to pick up a phone and make a phone call to close a deal. So there's some people like that. If it's just in business, it'll cause failure in business. But if it's in your avodat Hashem, if it's in your servitude of Hashem, if it's in your fulfilling of the mitzvot, where you say a lot of things that you're going to do, you plan a lot and you do very little, then unfortunately you are one of the people that's considered a rasha. Why rasha? Because that's what Esav did. That's what Esav did. And the Pasuk says, Et Esav saneti, Esav I hate him, Hashem says. Why? Because Esav said, listen, tomorrow I'm going to open this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to start this, I'm going to do all these different things. And in reality, never did anything, never even did tshuva. So Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to teach us, listen, even I, Kadosh Baruch Hu, I said only a few things in the Torah of how to make this menorah. And Moshe Rabbeinu saw all this thing and said, listen, Hashem, you want me to make this beautiful piece that you just showed me. You told me the words that I need to. You showed me how it is. Good. But I have no idea how to make it. Hashem says, don't worry about it. Just do whatever you can. Well, I don't know what I can do. Whatever you can do, do. What did Moshe do? He threw the gold in the fire. That's it. Nothing else. He couldn't do anything else. He didn't have the skill set. And this is a skill set that I don't believe anybody in the world had. But nonetheless, that was the effort that he made. He put the gold where it needs to be. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did the rest. But he gave him credit as if, and wrote it in the Torah, as if Moshe built it. Why? Moshe, you did your effort, I'll take care of the results. But here we learn, number one, HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us so much that even if we try a little bit, we just show him a little bit, he'll give us a reward and the credit as if we did a lot. But even more so is to teach us that even Hashem, in all of the grand, amazing things that he does, we don't have a concept of a fraction of how much we owe him for all the things that he does, because he doesn't speak much. He doesn't say a lot about what he does. What we have in the Torah, we have to go to the oral Torah to really truly understand all the things, and even that is not only scratching the surface, of all the things that Hashem does. Here we have clear pasuk in the Torah where Hashem says, listen, learn from me. I said to Moshe Rabbeinu, make the menorah. Obviously Hashem knew it, Moshe Rabbeinu can't do it. But he said, I said, make the menorah, to at least, here you go, make the menorah. He couldn't. I did it anyway. Why? I could have just said, listen, I'm going to make the menorah, and I'm going to make it this way, and I'm going to make it that way, and say all the things that he did. Hashem says, for what? It's a waste of speech. Let me teach you a lesson even from the menorah, where someone that's a tzaddik says little, does much. This is a very important lesson, Rabotai, for a person to learn from the parasha, and that's actually also one of the things we're going to learn from the Gaon of Vilna today. Because when a person is very careful with the words that he says, he's not only going to be careful to not speak with pride and arrogance and a lot of empty promises and a lot of lies, a lot of deception and so on, which unfortunately has become common speech today. But even more so, he's going to be careful with his words to the extent where he's going to make sure that each word comes out of his mouth is a good word. It's productive. It's something that's either going to produce some holiness in the world or something else that's good in the world. But unfortunately today, it's so common among people to speak so much venom out of their mouth to their friends about their friends. The friend that just left, murdering him in daylight. He just left. He was just with you. You guys just had some lunch. The girls just had lunch. The boys just had lunch. Everybody says, oh, okay, I'll see you guys later. I'm going back to work. The second he leaves, rip him apart. murder him in clear daylight with all of the flaws that he has. Oh, you see his nose, you see his hair, you see his wife, you see his car, you see this, you see that. He looks depressed, he looks too happy, he looks this. Just literally murdering people. But you call him your friend still, and people don't think twice about it. They think it's, what's so bad about it? Worse yet, people talk about their brothers and sisters. I hate my brother. I hope he did. What happened? Why do you hate your brother? Oh, because he did this, this, and this to me. Yeah, but you realize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said in Sefer Bereshit that he created man in his image. What does it mean he created man in his image? Hashem doesn't have a body. We're not Christianity that we think that Hashem has a body. He's not a human being. So what does it mean that he created him in his image? One of the things that it means is that just like Hashem created the world with speech, he said words, and therefore things were created from his words. Hashem allowed us as people also to create with words. We don't have the same power as Hashem. It's only the image and not him, meaning that we don't see the creation that comes out of our words, but nonetheless, one day we will. And sometimes we do see it later on, where the type of things that are created from our words, but nonetheless, anyone that has spiritual eyes and is able to see what literally comes out of his mouth will see things being created. When you say good things, when you make a blessing, when you say divrei Torah, you are literally creating angels. You're creating more holiness in the world. When you walk around, these angels come with you. When you go to sleep, they guard you. Whatever you're doing, they're right next to you. On the other hand, unfortunately, Shem Yachem, when a person says lashon hara, evil speech, gossip, makes up lies, all types of things, he creates demons. Those demons are there to hurt you. Those demons hate you. Those demons are constantly going to try to do whatever they can to impact and destroy the world around you. And they go with you, same places. They go with you to sleep. They go with you to the meeting that you have with your boss. They go with you to the meeting you have with your husband or your wife. They go with you everywhere. And they try to entice you to create even more sins, even more brothers for them that are going to give them more strength. And this is why a person that understands the magnitude of their speech and how they're literally creating, they would never say anything awful about anybody unless this is someone that's an enemy of God, where it's permissible to do such things. But someone that's not necessarily an enemy of God, and you're not doing it just because you're going to use the excuse, oh listen, this guy is a mechalel Shabbat, or this guy is an idol worshiper, so therefore I'm allowed to talk about him bad. Even though there is leniency in that regard, where there is no deen of lashon hara when it comes to people that are desecrating Shabbat or idol worshippers or apikosim, you could say whatever you want about them. It's still not recommended to do so, because if you start talking about them on a regular basis, you'll accustom yourself to doing it with even kosher people at some point. So a person should never go and start insulting people just because of his own personal issues. If that person is doing something against Hashem, and your words are for the sake of, defending Hashem and fighting the wars of Hashem, that's one thing, and that's praiseworthy, and you should do it. But if it's just because she cut you off on the highway, if it's just because she looks better than you, or she got what you want and you don't have it, if he got it, if he is this, if he is that, things that are personal, don't waste your time saying bad things about them. Why? Because even if it's permissible, it's not recommended. It's not recommended. And a person that understands the magnitude of their speech will be very careful. And if that's not enough, what the Gaon of Vilna brings today in his letter should, Be'ezrat Hashem, entice us to understand why it should be enough. It should be enough for any clever person that wants life. As the Chafetz Chaim was coin-named after the book, Chafetz Chaim, Rabbi Meir Cohen, his name was he was known as the Chafetz Chaim. But Chafetz Chaim means someone that wants life. Comes from pasuk in the Tanakh. Who wants life? Who wants life? And Torah says, who wants life? Let him guard his speech. What does it mean? Let him guard his speech. A person that guards his tongue from evil speech is surely a man that wants to live forever. Because if he doesn't, he won't live forever. How do we know this? This is one of the things that the Gaon of Vilna will speak about today, Be'ezrat Hashem. And it's important for us to know that the Gaon of Vilna is not coming to us with advice of things that are suggested as nice recommendations, perhaps even a mantra to motivate you, things that he thinks, things that perhaps he heard somewhere, but rather the Gaon of Vilna is coming to us from knowledge of things that he saw, everything he saw. These are the types of things that his own students, his family, literally, they saw the magnitude of his holiness and how he would do things and show them things that are beyond our comprehension in this lowly generation. People that are, fighting against the Torah, thinking that mysticism is nonsense and things of that nature. Mysticism is simply a regular day in the life of somebody that's holy. And when a person understands what the tzaddikim were saying, especially when someone like the Gaon of Vilna made a statement, a powerful one nonetheless, they understand that he's not coming to you with an opinion, he's coming to you with knowledge. And the difference between the two is that if I ask you, listen, do you think anybody is is at the ocean right now? I want to maybe dip in a mikveh, and the ocean is the best place to be in the mikveh, but I can't go to the ocean if there's going to be, naked people there, half naked people there, almost completely naked people there. I can't go there. This is, as a side note, for all of these people that are fooled by these wicked people that do mass conversions here in Florida and other places and tell everybody to go dip in the ocean when there's a bunch of immodest people out there. You should just know, going to the beach or to a pool or to any place where there's a bunch of people walking around in bathing suits or less is considered 100% gilui arayot. Gilui arayot is one of the 3 cardinal sins where the Torah says it's better that you die and don't make such a sin. To go to such a place, it's better that you die and not make a sin. So the people that are making these conversions at such places, in essence, on day one of these people supposedly converting to Judaism, they're making one of the 3 cardinal sins that it was better off they would just drown inside the ocean than actually go dip there for the sake of of converting to Judaism. But unfortunately, what do they know if they're being led or misled by bad shepherds? But nonetheless, it's very important for a person to know that the ocean itself is the best place. It's the best place to dip in a mikveh. So if I asked you, listen, I want to go to the ocean, do you know if there's people there? You could tell me, nah, I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe. Yes. No. You're not really sure. Why? You aren't there. You are just estimating based on maybe perhaps history, times you've been there, certain times of the day there's not people, there is people, and so on. But if somebody just literally is calling me from there right now, says, listen, what are you doing? You want to come to the beach? It's a good place right now. It's completely empty. There's nobody, not even the little fish are not even here. Nothing is here. You want to come dip in the mikveh? That's a person that comes to me with knowledge. Why? He's there right now. When the Gaon of Vilna is telling us what he's telling us, and some of the words we're going to hear over these next couple of weeks are going to be strong words. They're probably going to be some of the strongest words you're ever going to hear in your life. These are coming from knowledge. They're not coming from opinion. And that's critical to know when we're learning the words of the Chachamim. Now, after last week of the Gaon of Vilna describing the lowliness of the mundane things of this world, of how people, spend their whole lives chasing money, chasing materialism, chasing fame, chasing honor, all of the things that you can't take with you, all of the things that are simply, really here today, gone tomorrow. One of the biggest liars in the world is youth. When you're young and you think that you have the whole world in your hands, you run, you're strong, you could jump, you could dance, you can climb, you can do all these different things, and you think you're going to be able to do that your whole life. You think you're going to be able to do that your whole life. You're also sharp. You think that since you're getting so many more new ideas every day, you're always going to have this stream of new ideas your whole life. Everybody around you that's slow motion because they're older, they're double or triple your age. You think, I'm going to be able to surpass them. I'm going to be able to do better than them because I come up with something new every day. I produce a lot. Look at this guy. He's already in his 50s. He barely has X amount of money and X amount of fame and X amount of fortune. I'm only 20 years old, 25 years old, and I already have almost as much or more than him. So therefore, when I get to his age, I'll be a lot better off. And that's how the youth think. The youth think that they're on a straight path to higher and it's going to get better. And also sometimes the Yetzer Hara will also tell you, same thing when it comes to sins. Yeah, listen, I'm making the sins with the girl now. I'm making the sins with the guy now, but I'm still young. I still have time to do tshuva. I'm only 20, 25, 30 years old. I haven't settled down yet. I'm only having fun right now. One day when I settle down and I get old, they think that anyone that's above, 10 years older than them is old. Once I get older, then I'll do tshuva and I'll fix myself and I'll become a tzaddik and I'll learn the Zohar and I'll learn Gemara and I'll learn everything and I'll be like Rabbi Akiva. He started at 40 years old. They'll even give you a raya. They'll give you proof. Rabbi Akiva started at 40 years old. So they assume since Rabbi Akiva started at 40 years old, completely illiterate, and they already know a little bit, they're already a little bit literate, and and they're only 20, they assume that they're going to be able to do what Rabbi Akiva did for 80 years. There is no greater liar than youth. No greater liar than youth. Why? Because life changes so fast. Life changes so fast that as soon as a person realizes that it's changing, it's already too late. As soon as a person realizes that youth is no longer part of his life, it's already too late. It's already too late. And it's important for a person to learn as soon as possible. As soon as possible. Now there is physical youth and there's spiritual youth. There is physical youth that obviously is temporary. It's temporary. Why? Because you have your body. Your body will change over time. Some people earlier than others. My youth ended a little earlier than most people. Other people's youth ends a little later than other people. You see them still in their 50s climbing mountains and so on. Fine, no problem. Climbing a mountain is not necessarily a sin. You want to climb a mountain, go ahead, climb a mountain. It's a waste of time perhaps, but nonetheless, it's not a sin. Okay, as long as you study Torah, do mitzvot, you want to climb mountains, you want to go bike riding, you want to do some exercise, perfectly healthy, good for you. If that's all you do, then you're wasting your life, and your youth that you're getting is a curse. But if you're using this youth in order to give you all, keep your spirit also young, that's a good thing. Nonetheless, even if your body gets old, it doesn't mean that your soul needs to get old. Why? Because if you're constantly learning more and more Torah on a regular basis, you're going to constantly discover new things every day, and every day you're going to be like a brand new baby. Every day you're going to be like a brand new student, learning things for the first time. Learning about Adam HaRishon the first time. Learning about Noach the first time. Learning more detail about Moses the first time. Learning more details about this or that mitzvah the first time. Even though you've been religious for 20 years. That's why it's always very interesting to me to meet Talmidei Chachamim, scholars that learn our shiurim. Why? Because they're already scholars. They've already been studying for 20, 30, 50 years in some cases. They've wrote some books. Some of them extremely well known. And yet they're watching our lectures. And I always ask them the same question. Why would you watch my lectures? And every single time it's the same response. Like, listen, anyone that wants to get anywhere in life has to learn musar. You give good musar. You remind us of the basics that we all need. You remind us of all the things that we need to do. And it's good. And Baruch Hashem, you see that these people, even though they've been learning Torah for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, they're still spiritually young. And that's, in essence, a choice. That's a choice that a person has. Now, if a person wants to have life, as the Chafetz Chaim said, he has to keep himself young, but not only young physically, he has to keep himself young spiritually and to accept the Torah for what it is, where even if he discovers or she discovers that everything that she's been doing until this point is completely wrong, and in fact she'll get punished for it, she has to realize that there's a reason why she's hearing the truth now, because Hashem wants to give her or him another chance to renew themselves. To renew themselves, to learn what is the truth and apply it to your life. And you could literally be a brand new baby starting today. Even though you think you were religious for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, you think you were religious, you walked around like a religious person, you looked like a religious person, but every 2 words out of your mouth was some type of spiritual venom, lashon hara, lies, destroying people, deceiving people, and so on and so forth. You may not realize it, but you created yourself a Gaon, and a Gaon that is extremely big. But even before that Gaon, you'll have something else called Kafakela. And this is one of the things that the Gaon of Vilna will talk about tonight, B'ezrat Hashem. So here the Gaon of Vilna says, listen to us. Listen to him. I've seen it all, and people that are wasting their life chasing all the things that are temporary instead of chasing the things that are permanent are going to regret it. But even the people that are not necessarily chasing money, even the people that are not chasing physicality, still have to take this next section into account, because just keeping the basics is not enough. It's not enough. Now, who is he telling this to? He's telling this to his wife, the tzadikah. He's telling this to his household, full of tzadikim. That's who he's telling it to. It's meaning that if it applies to them, needless to say, it applies to the rest of us. So here he says, "V'akol yavi b'mishpat, kol dibur." Men will be judged for every word that he says. V'lo ne'evad afilu dibur kal. And even the slightest expression is not overlooked in heaven. Here, the Gaon of Vilna says to us that a person has to understand that careless speech, not even forbidden words, we're not talking about lashon hara, we're not talking about lying, we're not talking about deceiving. He's simply talking about careless speech, talking about nothing, talking about the movies, talking about politics, if you're not a politician, talking about things that have nothing to do with your profession, are not going to benefit your life in any way, shape, or form. Simply, small talk. Small talk is not only lowly, it's not only considered lowly, but it's a careless behavior. It's being irresponsible with your neshama. Why? Because a person would think that this is referring perhaps to, he's talking about maybe prohibited speech, so Hashem is going to judge us for every word, even the slightest expression. Person's going to think that. He says, no. You're thinking that every time you said lashon hara, Hashem is going to write it in a book. The Gaon of Vilna says, no, you're not understanding me. We're not talking about sins that you are clear about. The lies, the deception, the lashon hara, the evil speech. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about prohibited speech. What's prohibited speech? Mundane talk. Mundane talk that has nothing to do with Torah, or your profession, or your way to communicate in the world, whether it's to not disrespect people because someone is talking to you, they say hello, you say hello back, or it's to tell the clerk behind the counter to give you this, or say thank you. Those things are necessary. Those things are necessary to function in the world, to your work. You need to communicate with your clients, with your boss, with your fellow employees about things that have to do with work. No problem also. You need to learn Torah, say a good speech of Torah. That's amazing. We're not talking about that. We're talking about everything else other than those three things. Everything else. Because simply, a person might answer that there's room to think that idle or even prohibited speech is not going to carry much of a punishment, since the speech is not really an action. The Gaon of Vilna is stressing here that prohibited speech is punishable. But it's not just prohibited speech like we think, being prohibited speech that is lashon hara and deception and things of that nature, but rather we're talking about mundane talk, as Rabbi Michael Yehuda Lefkowitz explains that the Gaon of Vilna is clearly talking about speech that does not involve an actual direct sin, meaning it is not sinful speech that he's referring to going to be judged for every single word that a person says. But rather, a person is obligated to speak the minimum possible. Because a person's careless utterings are going to be repeated to that person on his final judgment. The Gemara in Yerushalmi, chapter 2, halakha number 1, says that Kadosh Baruch Hu, and it's also in the Gemara Masechet Chagiga, page 5b, says there's a pasuk in Amos, the prophet Amos, says Magid le'adam masicho, that he, meaning Hashem, recounts to a person what were his deeds. What were his deeds? Chachamim in the Gemara, in Masechet Chagiga, says masicho is his deeds, but also sicho means conversation. Hashem is going to tell a person what were his deeds based on what were your words, what were your conversations about. Did you talk about baseball, basketball, stock market, all this nonsensical talk? Then I already know your whole life is full of sins. You talked about girls, your whole life is full of sins. You talked about guys, your whole life is full of sins. You talked only about politics, your whole life is full of sins, and Hashem yishmor v'yatzil. May Hashem preserve us and help us from such speech. Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to repeat and show a person every single word that he says. And Chachamim say, the Mekubalim say, in the Sefer Reshit Chochmah and other places, in the Zohar Kadosh, is an angel. There's an angel that is designated to tell a person every single word he ever said. As soon as he dies, as soon as a person dies, part of the things that happen before the person is judged in Shamayim, Genom, Kafakela, heaven, whatever it is an angel that has been counting and documenting every single word you ever said. And it's going to be put on a big projecting screen. Oh, you said, why'd you say this word? You know this word's not allowed, right? Oh, why'd you say that word? Why, that word's not allowed too? Well, that word's allowed, but not about her. That word is allowed, but not about him. And every single word will be counted for a person. V'yagid la'adam masicho. Kadosh Baruch Hu will tell you, what's your conversation like? Look what you said during your life. I gave you words, and this is what you used. I gave you a mouth. I gave you a mouth, and you used it against me. Now, here, the Gaon of Vilna is telling us that a person is judged for every word, and the Chasidei Chabad that learn the Tanya will also be reminded that the Baal Tanya says in his famous Sefer, the Tanya, that a person that says mundane things goes to a special place in Genom. We're not talking about forbidden speech. We're talking about mundane things. Goes to a special place in Genom of ice. I don't know if they teach this in Chabad anymore, but this is in the Tanya. Now, the Pnei Moshe explains that a person's words make deep impressions in the upper world, as we just mentioned, because the Kadosh Baruch Hu created man in his image. In essence, even though you feel like your actions, your physical actions make the biggest impressions, they don't. Your words are what makes the biggest impressions. And the Chafetz Chaim in the Sefer Shmirat HaLashon, in volume 2, Parashat Ki Titzeh, he takes this a step further by saying that when a person finally performs some degree of personal introspection, starts evaluating his or her actions, are they keeping, are they not keeping, are they careful, are they not careful, how they're behaving in accordance to what the rule of the Torah is, does some introspection. He will primarily examine his physical deeds. But regarding his words, not so much. Because he thinks to himself, what harm could my ephemeral words ever do? But in truth, this is not so at all, the Chafetz Chaim says. In fact, the opposite is true. Misplaced words could potentially be more destructive than actions. And on one's judgment day, he will be shown the devastating power of his words. Here the Chafetz Chaim gives us an atomic bomb. When we do some introspection, what do we evaluate? We evaluate how we behave. How we behave physically. Did I steal? No, I didn't steal. Did I go to a place that's not allowed? No, I didn't go to a place that's not allowed. Did I waste seed? No, I didn't waste seed. Did I violate Shabbat? No, I didn't violate Shabbat. And so on and so forth. You evaluate all the things that you see and people see you do. And you figure, listen, since I didn't make any of the cardinal sins, I didn't murder anybody, I didn't steal from anybody, I didn't worship any idols, I didn't do any, I'm good. I'm good. Chafetz Chaim says, you may be mistaken, but not only mistaken with your life. Because you're not even evaluating the words that you say. You're not evaluating the words that you say because you don't think that anything bad comes from words, but you don't realize that sometimes words are much, much worse than the actions. To the extent where they can destroy a person. And really, just to give an example of how destructive something can be, there's a famous story by one of the Gdolim in America, Rav Pam. Rav Pam, alav shalom, was a Gadol Ador in America. And somebody came to him and told him, Rebbe, I have a problem. I have to do tshuva for, I need you to help me. He says, okay, tell me the story, what happened? He says, years ago, when I was a little boy, in the cheder, we were going to a Jewish school. You know, Jewish school we're learning. And one day, another boy came to the school. And I knew him as one of the people I knew. And everybody played and so on. But when this kid came with a really, really unique toy. No one ever saw anything like it. It's a really cool toy. And I saw it, I had to have it. I knew it wasn't mine. But it was such a toy, I had to have it. And as soon as he wasn't looking, I took it. I hid it, and what? And he didn't see me. Well, since it was such a special toy, it's an expensive toy, he went to the Rebbe, and he cried to the Rebbe, listen, Rabbi, somebody stole my toy. Somebody stole my toy. So the Rabbi said, oh, it's not acceptable here. We're going to get to the bottom of it. So he tells everybody in the class who stole the toy. Nobody raised their hand. He said, okay, I'm going to go through every one of your bags. If you don't tell me who stole the toy, I'm going to go through every one of your bags, and whoever has it is going to get a severe punishment. Nobody answers. And the rabbi goes one after another. This is not necessarily a recommended way of doing it, but nonetheless, this is what this rabbi did. Every rabbi has their own strategy, but we see here that the rabbi, we'll learn, didn't necessarily do the best way of uncovering the theft. Why? Because the rabbi was doing it, checking the bags in front of everyone, and the man that's telling the story, that stole the toy, he says he was getting close to me, and I saw him, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to admit it, because I didn't admit it already. I was so embarrassed, and I knew I was going to get in trouble, but at the same token, he's getting to me. What am I going to do? I took the toy, and I threw it, and it landed in another boy's bag, because everybody had to open their bag. I landed, and nobody saw. I threw it, and it landed in another boy's bag. So, when the teacher came to me, checked, no toy. But when he got to him, and he opened the bag and he saw the toys there, he started yelling at this kid. He said, you don't have any shame? Not only you steal, but when I ask repeatedly about the toy, you don't admit it. And the boy says to him, listen, I didn't steal the toy. Now you're even lying to my face. Why, I don't see. He said, I don't know how it got there. I didn't steal the toy. The rabbi gets furious at this kid, embarrasses him, calls his parents. The parents come down to the school. The rabbi tells the parents what happened. And the father of this kid yells at him, and all the kid keeps saying is, I didn't steal the toy. and everyone's yelling at him, and this kid doesn't know what hit him. Later that night, the kid decides, I'm not going back to school. I'm not going back to the yeshiva. I can't go back there. I'm not going back there. The parents try to convince him he's not going. Their last resort, what are you going to do? You have to go to school. They decide to send him to public school. So when we came back to school the next day, the next week, I never saw that kid again. We heard he went to public school somewhere else, but we never saw him again. And then what happened? Well, many years have passed, and I'm about to get married. So I went out to go buy a ring. It's a present, not anything else, a present for my new wife. And I'm walking down the street and I see a familiar face. It's his face. It's like, hey, what's going on? It's like, hey, how you doing? Whatever, what are you doing? It's like, what are you doing here? It's like, oh, I'm going to get a ring. He's like, oh, me too. What do you mean you two? What are you getting a ring for? Oh, I'm getting married. Oh, Mazel Tov. Oh, who are you getting married? Oh. So I tell him, listen, I'm marrying Sarah. We're going to have a wedding, this and that. It's like, oh, okay. I'm marrying Christine that he met at the public school. Now, Rabbi, he tells Rabbi Pam, this kid went off, left the yeshiva after everything that happened, went to public school, and became just like them, and now he's going to marry a Goya. What could I do? Rabbi Pam wasn't someone that said words for no reason. Says to him, listen, is it 100% your fault? No. The rabbi, he says, should have never rebuked the kid the way he did in front of everyone and embarrassed him. The father of this kid should have asked himself, why does the boy keep saying, I didn't steal it? Even though it's right, it's in front of everyone. I mean, you have to see, the kid is saying something. He's saying, I didn't steal it multiple times. Why doesn't anybody take his words into account? So the father is at fault. So it's not 100% your fault. But for the part that is your fault, he says, there's no way for you to do tshuva. You can't fix it. That boy is going to marry a Goya and have Goyish kids and have all these there. There's nothing you can, there's no tshuva for you. Hashem yishmor v'yatzil. Do you understand what it means, no tshuva, Rabotai? Do you understand what it means, no tshuva? You can't fix something. Anyone that does literally starts crying, floods coming out of their eyes because of what it means. The Gaon of Vilna is telling us that you can say things and think that only things that are strictly forbidden, lies and deception and evil speech, that is something that's clearly forbidden, and as long as you don't do that, you're in clear. You're in clear. You're not doing something that's unforgivable. The Gaon of Vilna is saying that's not the only thing to worry about. In fact, you have to worry about simply talking about mundane things and not being careful with your speech. How careful do you need to be? Every word will be accounted for. And then he continues in the letter, V'lachen ani mazirech. Therefore I caution you. He's cautioning his wife and obviously us. Shetargili b'kol hayoter leshev yechidit. To accustom yourself as much as possible to dwell alone. Why? Why dwell alone? Most people love to have friends. Sometimes people tell me, listen, ever since I did tshuva, I lost all my friends. I don't know what to do. I'm so sad. Well, the Gaon of Vilna is saying it's a great thing to be alone. Get used to it to be alone. Why? Although people sometimes need to have company, they need to have some people in their life, the Gaon of Vilna is saying, get used to being alone, dwelling alone. Why? There's a very big price that you could be paying for that friend, for that company that you keep next to you. What is it? Your olam haba. Why? You have a lot of friends, you're constantly around people, they like to talk about mundane things, they like to talk about forbidden things. you're losing your olam haba along with them. Your heaven goes into the garbage along with theirs. Because being in company with people constantly, obviously you're bound to talk. And unless you are a big tzaddik or tzaddikah that only talks about Torah and things that are productive in the world, surely you're going to say things that are forbidden, and you're going to make a very, very big crime against Hashem. So the Gaon of Vilna is saying, accustom yourself as much as possible to dwell alone, because the sin of misuse of the tongue is the most severe. As our sages of blessed memory said in the Yerushalmi, the Tosefta, Masechet Peah, chapter 1, these are the things that man enjoys, their fruit. There's a Gemara in Yerushalmi that talks about all the different things that a person enjoys in this world. And then it talks about these are the forbidden things. And the worst of these forbidden things, he says, things that are the cardinal sins, idol worship, immorality crimes, whether it be wasting seed or adultery, or being with a woman that's nida, even if she's your wife. All these guys that have girlfriends, you're with a nida every single time you're together. It's isur karet. Same thing as the karet on idolatry, and the same thing as karet, on murder. So these three major crimes: idolatry, immorality, and murder. But then the Gemara says, and lashon hara is equivalent to all of them. Here, the Gemara, our sages, give us an atomic bomb. Everybody knows idolatry is forbidden. Jews, non-Jews, everyone knows the Torah forbids idolatry. Unfortunately, not everybody understands what idolatry is, but everybody knows that idolatry is forbidden. Everyone knows that murder is forbidden, even the atheists. Everyone knows murder is forbidden. Everyone knows that immorality is forbidden. Unfortunately, not everybody knows what classifies as immorality. In fact, today, immorality is celebrated and highlighted, and there's even shows about it, whether it's immorality of people that are promoting promiscuity in the public, or people that are promoting adultery, and they have all these different shows about how adultery is fun and good and exciting, and that's why you have so many marriages in the world break and completely shatter people's lives, and every other day there's a new phone call or a new message of some other home is broken because of adultery that has become running rampant in our society. But nonetheless, people know it's forbidden. Perhaps that's the reason why more people are chasing it, because as Shlomo HaMelech teaches, Mayim gnuvim imtaku, stolen water are sweeter. People want what's forbidden, especially when they don't go in the words, in the way of Hashem. But the Chachamim are saying in our Gemara that this adultery that is wrong, this immorality, it's wrong, this murder, it's wrong, right? And on top of it, this idolatry, it's wrong. These three cardinal sins, it's wrong. Lashon hara is like all of them. Forbidden speech is like all of them. You just heard. You just came back from somebody invited you for Shabbos. And first time you ever got to his house, you see the guy, he has Shabbat like a king. It's beautiful things, food, waiters, all types of delicacies, the best of the best. And you are a special guest. You were invited. You go there, your friend asks you, so how was it over there? You tell him that this guy is rich, he did this, and he gave you this, and he had this. Lashon hara. It's Lashon hara. Why is it Lashon hara? It's true what he said. What he did. He did host you, and he did have a nice house, and he did have a beautiful everything that you're saying. Everything you're saying is true. Lashon hara is true. If it's not true, then it's completely something else. It's a different sin. Then it's motzi shem ra. If you say, oh no, it's a... But here the Gemara says, there are certain things that you are allowed and you should change the truth. You should change the truth. Number one, how much Torah do you know? Somebody asks you, did you did you complete the Shas? Did you learn all of this Gemara? Did you finish this Masechet? You can lie about it. You can change the truth. No, I delve into things. It's better you don't say. Better you don't say. Why? Come as arrogance. Also, people can think you know more than you actually do. One of the things to lie about, don't tell people how much Torah you know. Number 2, intimacy between you and your wife, things like that. Never tell people, listen, by the way, I can't come to the lecture tonight. Oh, why? My wife's going to the mikveh. Why? That's going to put thoughts in people's head of what? Your wife going to the mikveh and what you guys are doing. Or perhaps tell people, listen, my wife, amazing. She's amazing. Why are you, Rasha Merusha, evil person, telling people this? But people do this. People do this all the time, and then they're surprised that their friends become their wife's second husband. They're surprised. Well, you tell people about what your wife, even telling your friends about any compliment about your wife. Oh, my wife, she cleans the house so good. Oh, my wife, she's a big banker. She makes a lot of money. Oh, my wife, she's the best chef. Wrong. Do not do it. Gemara says don't do it. Why? Every time you give compliments of your wife to your friends, automatically your friend will start thinking about your wife. What do you mean? I just told him that my wife made a mean steak. I just told him my wife makes chulent like it just came from Mount Sinai. With the man. What's so bad about saying my wife is a good cook? What's so bad about saying my wife makes a lot of money, or my wife is this, my wife... What's so bad? Because now he's thinking about your wife. No, he has a wife. Exactly. He has a wife. If he doesn't have a wife, it's even worse. But if he has a wife, guess what? The second you tell him, your wife's a good cook, your wife makes money, your wife does this, your wife does that, and there's no real purpose. He's not like your rabbi that you're asking him certain things to help you with your marriage or something. You're just telling him to show off that your wife is the best. You're trying to compliment your wife. You're trying to make her feel good. Because she's right next to you. She's complimenting your wife. Guess what? The minute you tell him your wife is good at something or does this, from that second, he's going to compare his wife to your wife. He comes to your house, he says, wow, his house is clean. Oh yeah, my wife just finished cleaning it. She cleans like this all the time. What is he thinking? My wife doesn't clean like this. Psh, my wife doesn't even clean. I got 3 cleaning ladies, the place still dirty. I'm going to talk to my wife. He has a meal at your house. What do you think of the meal? My wife made it. It's a good meal, right? Yeah. My wife doesn't even cook, he says. He thinks in his head, my wife doesn't cook like this. She doesn't even cook. Last time I ate, we had McDonald's. Where does she cook? Where does she cook? I think it was dog food even. Where does she cook? He's comparing his wife to your wife. He starts thinking about your wife. Gemara says, do not talk about your wife, even lie about it. Change the truth. Change the truth rather than lie. Change the truth. That's number 2. So 1 is the being how much Torah you know. 2 is about your wife, whether it's the intimate things or even other things. Talking about your wife in general to other people. Terrible idea. Same thing with husbands, by the way, ladies. Don't tell all your girlfriends how great your husband is, and he bought you this jewelry, and he bought you a car, and he does this, and he takes care of the kids, and my husband is the best. Why? Because your husband's going to have a few more wives if you do that. Simple. Why? All your girlfriends say, my husband doesn't do this. My husband didn't buy me this. Maybe he's going to buy me something also. I'm prettier than her. I'm this than her. And the next thing you know, your husband has multiple girlfriends. And then you're surprised. Don't talk about your spouses to anyone. No one. Literally no one. That's what the Gemara says. That's why there's no divorce rate in a religious community. The more religious you are, the less likely you are to get divorced. Why? Nobody knows anything about your business. You're like these people that live on the block, but nobody even knows your name. That's it. Now this may seem fanatic to people. Oh, it's not nice. I want to have friends. I want to have this. Okay, you want to have friends. You're going to want to have multiple marriages. You want to have multiple abbas and imas and cousins. Oh, go ahead, do what you want. Just join Western society. See how they're succeeding. See how they're succeeding. Everybody that has all these friends, they have 500 people show up to their house on a regular basis, and they also have multiple houses for their multiple lives. Gemara says, don't say. Third thing to change the truth, how you were hosted. How you were hosted. Someone hosted you in a good way, he's rich, he's this. Don't tell people. Why? lest they all come to him and take all of his money. Once they hear this guy's rich, this guy's a great host, this guy's this guy's that. Oh, can I come to your house for Shabbos? Can I come to your house for Tuesday? What? It's Tuesday. Why do you want to come to my house? It's Tuesday. I heard that you guys have good food over there. What am I, chef? Am I restaurant? Oh, I don't know. I figured you're eating, and since your wife is such a good cook, and you have some chandeliers, I don't know. Joe came there. How come you don't invite us? Chamord, why did you tell me? Why did you tell people that I hosted you? Why did you tell people you even came to my house? Why? Now they're all calling me, asking me to come. And guess what? That puts a lot of problems on a person. Gemara says, keep your mouth shut. Why? It's Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara. To say you are hosted by somebody in a good way. To such an extent, Chachamim say it's even better you lie about it. Say, why? Yaron hosted me? Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I was there, I passed by. No, I heard that he's a good host. No, I mean, he's a whatever you consider good. I don't know. Let's talk. I'm not going to say, but Gemara says that's a mitzvah. That's a mitzvah. What? Isn't that lying? Isn't that deceiving? On that you're allowed to do. Why? Because telling him the truth can cause damage. Telling him the truth can cause damage. So here, Rabotai Karim, a person that does not know the details of Lashon Hara, does not know the details of how to communicate with society, could be thinking they're doing a mitzvah, they're publicizing that such and such person is a good host, they're publicizing that their wife or husband is the best wife and husband in the world, they're publicizing that they know all the Torah that exists in the world. Rabotai, mistake. Mistake that is very expensive. Says the Gaon of Vilna, because Lashon Hara is more devastating than all of them. And then he continues, and I don't have to elaborate on this sin because it's the most stringent of all sins. The Sefer Boy Cheshbon brings the words of Rabbeinu Bachya on Bereshit. Rabbeinu Bachya, it's about 400 years ago, he wrote a commentary on each parasha in the Torah. As a side note, somebody showed me just a day ago that there is a sale on the English version of his books, Commentary on the Torah, Rabbeinu Bachya, Torah commentary by Rabbi Bachya, that was translated by Rabbi Monk, who translated many works to English. And he has a lot of the Tana Deve Eliyahu, I believe, the Akedat Yitzchak, Rabbeinu Bachya, a lot of amazing books that were not translated to English by anybody else. He did throughout his life, and a lot of the stuff is unknown. But nonetheless, Rabbeinu Bachya's work was translated to English by Rabbi Monk, and this is about 400 years ago. So anyway, this apparently was on sale. Usually it's like $250 or so, and it was on sale for like $80. So anyone that wants commentary on the Torah, highly recommended if there's still any left. So here's Rabbeinu Bachya explains that there's a reason why you see a common denominator among all of the greats. Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, David, the 12 tribes. What's the common denominator? They were all shepherds. What's so special about shepherds? Maybe there was a lot of money in there. Now, does anybody really think that Moshe Rabbeinu was a shepherd because of money? Does anyone actually think for a second that Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were shepherds because of money, or the 12 tribes were shepherds because of money? Even though Hashem did bless them, especially Avraham and Yaakov, he blessed them extraordinarily. But nonetheless, that's not the reason they were shepherds, especially that when David HaMelech was a shepherd, he was a poor kid that everyone thought he was a mamzer. So it wasn't for money. So how come David HaMelech chose to be a shepherd? How come all of these greats chose to be a shepherd? Comes Rabbeinu Bachya and says something amazing. He says they chose to be shepherd as a profession because that would enable them to seclude themselves from society. And they desired this because most sins are a result of associating with other people. And this may come in the form of talebearing, evil speech, false oaths, licentious behavior, theft. And to the degree that a person is able to isolate himself from other people, he'll be spared from any ill effects of the sin. Here Rabbeinu Bachya is saying, you want to be a tzaddik? Get used to being alone as often as possible. Now, being alone is a lot more tricky today. It's a lot more tricky today. Why? Because you could be alone as far as you don't see anyone physically. You don't get together with anybody. Nobody comes to your house. You don't go to anybody's house. You work out of the house. You don't even go to an office. But you make more sins than all of the people that existed from the time of Noah until today. How? Internet. All day on the internet, on Facebook, Shmacebook, Twitter, Bibber, Disper, TikTok, Pickpock, Genom, Kafakela, everything. All the different chambers. You're going to go through every single one. Lashon hara on the rabbis, Lashon hara on the good people, Lashon hara on Am Yisrael, Lashon hara in evil speech. Look at pornography, look at filth, lie, waste your time on sports, waste your time on politics. All of a sudden everybody's a diagnostician. They knows why the coronavirus came and why the virus is not being cured and why it is being cured. And all day, filthy speech and visions come to them without seeing a single person in real life. On the internet. And that's why anytime people ask me, Rabbi, should I have a profile on Facebook or any other social media? I tell them, same answer to everyone. If the only reason you are on the internet is for the sake of sharing Torah and consuming Torah, allowed. But if you do anything else, i.e., socializing with people, making comments on the internet about your opinion about something as if your opinion counts. If you do anything else other than watching Torah lectures or sharing Torah lectures, if you do anything else, internet forbidden. Forbidden. Now, of course, you need it for work. You work in a stock market, you work for, something that requires the internet, no problem. For the work purposes, you do what you need to do for work. But if you are, when you're not working, you're doing anything that is other than consuming and sharing Torah, mistake, sins, and it's going to be major problems. Major problems, Rabotai. Rabbi Ephraim had a couple come to him some time ago, saying, we need help, shlom bayit. What happened? The wife and the husband were having a problem. The husband thought about divorcing her, then decided he's going to divorce her. Let's go to the Beit Din. Now they have 8 kids together. It's not such a easy situation. But nonetheless, the husband was fed up with a few things. But last minute, that day, the Beit Din announced that they can't do the get that day. Come back another day. And the husband decided that he doesn't want to do the get. After all, he wants to stay with his wife and work on it. Sounds good, right? Problem. What's the problem? When the wife learned that her husband is leaving her, she went to the internet. And she started crying to people on the internet that she's going to be alone. So of course, somebody that knew her, somebody that knew her husband, wanted to comfort her and started talking to her on the internet. And on the day, and he said to her, listen, I'll meet up with you the day that you get the get, we'll support, we'll have a coffee. Now, even though the meeting with the Beit Din was canceled, the meeting with the so-called friend was not canceled. And they had coffee and then other things too, unfortunately. And this woman became a Eshet Ish, a woman that cheated on her husband because she was still married. Now, according to halacha, if there are witnesses to a woman cheating on her wife, cheating on her husband is not allowed to stay with her. But if there's no witnesses, and the only people that are witnesses to it are the people that are acted on it, meaning her and her husband, the husband can choose not to believe her, and thereby he's allowed to stay with her. Very difficult situation. Could be very, very problematic nonetheless, because obviously cheating is not acceptable. And that's what they came to Rabbi Chaim with. They told him, listen, she cheated. She thought I'm leaving her. I don't want to leave her. We had problems, but we have 8 kids. And we want to stay together. What can we do? First rule, shut off the internet. No more Facebook, no more nothing. How long? Permanently. Permanently. Why? That's where it started for you. You communicated, you found the Satan inside the internet. Satan found you inside the internet. Only way this is going to work is if there is no internet. That's it. No more Facebook, no more Schmacebook. And unfortunately, Rabotai, this is not the only story. I wish it was the only story. I wish it was the only story that I know about such things. I wish it was the only story. How many stories have come to my desk of women telling me they cheated on their husband, or husbands telling me that they cheated on their wives, Hashem Yishmo v'yatzil, with someone that they met on some group, some Torah group, or some Facebook group, or some Gehenom group. How many people have come to me with this nightmare of nightmares? Oh, but I feel bad now. Maybe you should have thought about that before you got undressed. But that's what happens. People don't think. They're like animals. They don't think. The Gaon of Vilna says, not only do you have to think about that, but you have to think about every word that comes out of your mouth, because you'll even be judged for that. What kind of judgment, though? What kind of judgment is it? What kind of judgment is this whole situation? How come Moshe Rabbeinu decided to be a shepherd? Avraham decided to be a shepherd. What kind of judgment awaits a person who is not careful with their words? What kind of judgment? First and foremost, the person that says forbidden speech, their prayers in Shemayim don't get accepted. Rav Steineman alav shalom. Somebody came to him and said, Kvod Rav, I don't understand. We pray, but Hashem is not answering. Why isn't Hashem answering us? Rav Steineman says to him, listen, if there was a king and you wanted to give the king a present, you wanted to give him jewels, but you gave him the jewels inside one of those pans they have in the hospital that's full of the, excuse me to say it, but the filth of the human being that comes out of his body. Because he can't get himself up to to go to the bathroom, so they give him a little can. And you use this can with the stuff on it, but you put the jewelry in there, the diamonds, the 5-carat diamond in there. Flawless, but it's full of fecal matter around it. Would you think the king would be happy about your diamonds? That's our prayers, he says. How could we expect HaKadosh Baruch Hu to like the diamonds of prayers that we have if all day we say forbidden speech, if all day we lie in business, if all day we rip people apart and lie about each other and cheat on each other and cheat the customers and cheat the government and cheat the partners? How? The speech that we have, that we say words of Kedusha, are full of filth. How could Hashem accept it? That's one of the major punishments. That's a punishment in this world. That's a literal punishment in this world. The person says Lashon Hara, Kadosh Baruch Hu says, listen, I don't want to hear Lashon Hara. I don't want to hear Lashon Hara. I don't want to hear all this evil speech. That's one of the obvious things. Second thing is, Rabotai, is that the evil speech is one of the things that brings destruction to the world. Brings destruction to the world. The Gemara in Masechet Yomah, page 9b, says that the second Bet HaMikdash was destroyed because of Sinat Chinam, was being one of the primary reasons. It also says it was destroyed because people desecrated Shabbat and made other crimes, but the straw that broke the camel's back was the Sinat Chinam. And some of the Chachamim say, what is Sinat Chinam? Sinat Chinam, baseless hatred, is Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara. How is it's expressed through Lashon Hara? How is baseless hatred expressed through Lashon Hara? Simple. You guys are having coffee, and you see one of the new neighbors in town to the Frum community comes by. Hey, how are you? How you doing? Hi, who, hey. Right? Everybody's hi. 2 seconds later, they leave. After all the highs and buys and the fake hellos, they leave. Right after they leave, do you think they're a good fit in our community? I don't know if they're really up to our standards. We're Sephardic, we're Ashkenazi, we're Hasidish, we're this, we're Gabri, pa. They're only a BT, they're only a Baal Tshuva, they're a convert, who knows? Maybe they'll go back to their ways. That's Sinat Chinam, Rabotai. Hating a person for no reason whatsoever. No reason whatsoever. Brand new person, you have no reason to hate them. But because you have simply put them in some box, because they're Baal Tshuva, or they're Hasidish, or they're Ashkenazi, or they're Sfaradi, or they're whatever they are that's not like you don't like different. That's Sinat Chinam. Very simple way. One description of Sinat Chinam. Another one, Rabbi Yaron Reuven would explain, is sometimes you live in a building. And the building is full of Jewish people, Baruch Hashem. Right? It's like one of these places in New York, in Israel, different places that have, Baruch Hashem, buildings full of Jewish people. But of course, some people have kids, people have this, people have that. Happens to be that the most annoying person that lives in a building happens to be your neighbor. How do you decide this is the most annoying person? Because they are loud on the phone. So when they're on the phone, they're calling their grandmother in Israel. They feel like they have to scream into the phone to make sure that they hear them in Israel without the phone. Hi, you there? You hear me? Yeah, he just came from graduation. Yeah. And just screaming into the phone. And you as the neighbor, you can hear every word she says. And it's 11 o'clock at night. And you don't want to hear it. And she's screaming. And you hate her. And you start saying, she is the worst. She is this. She is that. She's this. She's that. That's Sinat Chinam. Why is that Sinat Chinam? Why is that baseless hatred? Rabbi again says, to hate her, you're right. You should hate her. She's annoying. She's talking loud on the phone. But the amount that you hate her is too much. That's too much. It's free. It's baseless. Hate her a little bit because she's annoying. You're right. But the amount that you hate her and how you're going to start, you think about her, and when you see her, you want to kill her, you want this, that's too much. That's Sinat Chinam. And there's other examples of Sinat Chinam, Rabotai. Sinat Chinam, Rabotai, is one of the things that destroyed the Bet HaMikdash. One of the ways Sinat Chinam is expressed is forbidden speech. Forbidden speech. You tell people what you think about certain people, and you simply don't need to. Your speech is not for the purpose of helping them, helping yourself, or helping the listener. And unfortunately, what ends up happening is that all of you are in trouble. All of you are in trouble. The other Rabbeinu Bechaye from the Chovot HaLevavot, about over 900 years ago, 1,000 years ago maybe. Rabbeinu Bechaye from the Chovot HaLevavot says that when someone says Lashon Hara about another person, they don't understand what they just did. They say Lashon Hara, they don't understand what they just did. Why? The amount of damage that they just caused to themselves is so extraordinary just for a single time of saying Lashon Hara. Single time of saying Lashon Hara. The amount of damage that they caused, literally they would cry blood if they could. They would cry blood if they could. Why? Rabbeinu Bechaye says, Chovot HaLevavot, says the following. You say Lashon Hara about her. At that time that you say Lashon Hara about her, to your girlfriend, to your boyfriend, to whoever you say it to, at that moment, all of your mitzvot go to her, and all of her averot, all of her sins go to you. You show up to Shamayim, you're thinking that you kept all of the Torah, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows you a bill from here until the end of the world, of all the sins that you made. Like, what do you mean? I was frum. Frum? You call yourself frum? Look how many sins you have. I didn't make that sin. Yes, you did. I didn't make that sin. Yes, you did. I didn't make that sin. Yes, you did. What do you mean? This is a house of lies here. How could it be? I didn't make all those sins. When you said Lashon Hara about her, all of the mitzvot that you have went to her, and all of her sins went to you. So even though you probably gathered some other mitzvot throughout the rest of your life, what are you going to do with all those extra avirot? What are you going to do with all those extra sins you have in your account? That is another consequence of forbidden speech. Hence the reason, Rabotai, a person literally has to be as quiet as they can. Has to be as quiet as they can. And the Maharal in the Derush on Shabbat Shuvah, he says, people think that there are certain things that they don't look like big sins, so surely we're not going to be judged for them so bad. He says that's an incorrect way of looking at things, because we all know that there are some mitzvot that look insignificant, but yet there's great reward for them. For example, tzitzit. Tzitzit doesn't look like such a big mitzvah, especially for people that wear it already for many years. But the amount of reward that a person gets for the mitzvah tzitzit in this world and the next is simply incomprehensible. That's how big it is. Even at the time of Mashiach, every single person that wears a tzitzit will have 2,800 righteous Noahides as his servants, learning his Torah, being his students, helping him function in the world for the sake of learning his Torah. Just for wearing one tzitzit. If you're like Rav Kook from Tveria, you wear 20, 30, 40, 50 tzitziot at a time, you'll have many more. What are you going to do with 3,000 servants and students? I have no idea. But nonetheless, point is, that's in this world. There's also protection in this world in regards to sins and so on, but also there's an amount of protection that you get when there is a decree, an evil decree in Shamayim. The Gemara in Masechet Menachot says, when there's an evil decree, like unfortunately there is right now. You had coronavirus. Before coronavirus, you had a lot of anti-Semitism. Before that, you had a lot of problems with the schooling system in the U.S., in England. All of these yeshivot had problems. So you see that there is already a stretch of problems that's been happening already for the last couple of years. Problems with the schools, anti-Semitism in the streets, in Israel, in America, in London, in France. Everywhere is anti-Semitism. Then you have coronavirus. Then you had the whole tragedy in Meron. Then you had the evil Hamas and the rest of the terrorists from Palestinians attack and shoot hundreds of missiles. Then you had another tragedy for another community where hundreds of people got injured just a week ago, and a few people died, Hashem Yishmor. You see, literally, there's like one tragedy after another. You're seeing the amount of anti-Semitism in Los Angeles, in New York, in Florida, all over the world is now higher than it's ever been in history. Literally, it's the only time it's compared to is the Holocaust. What happened right before the Holocaust? It's become standard practice to be anti-Semitic. It's not a problem anymore. It's not frowned upon anymore. You even have members of Congress and different governments openly being anti-Semitic and hating Jews for no reason whatsoever. This is what's caused a lot of trouble. This is what's called an evil decree in the world, where you see there's one tragedy after another with no break. The Gemara in Masechet Menachot says, when there's such a time where there's so much damage happening in the world, there's such an evil decree in the world, such punishment and wrath that Hashem brings into the world, people get punished even for things that they're not obligated to do. Meaning, you're not obligated to wear a tzitzit. If you have clothing, a shirt that has four corners, then it has to have the tzitzit. But if you don't have four corners, you don't have to wear a tzitzit. But the Gemara says, at such times, like we have today, you'll get punished for not wearing tzitzit. Even though you don't have to, you'll get punished. Why? Because you needed the merits. You needed the merits. So a person doesn't understand how much he gets for a simple mitzvah like wearing a tzitzit. A simple mitzvah. Needless to say, a person doesn't understand the amount of damage and punishment he'll get for things that seem simple, like lashon hara, like baseless speech, mundane speech about nothing, talking about the stock market, talking about politics, talking about all this nonsensical things that mean nothing and do nothing for anybody. All these people that play all day on the internet and look for different videos of somebody attacking Jews or different type of conspiracies and so on, you're wasting your life. And unfortunately, you may even bring punishment to yourself because of that waste of time. So the Maharal says that don't be fooled by the fact that it seems insignificant, because there are sometimes mitzvot that seem insignificant and the reward is great. Needless to say, some sins seem insignificant and the punishment is severe. So here we see that a person has to be very, very careful. Very careful. And the mitzvah of learning Torah, and also saying evil speech are performed by using our primary tool of communication, which is speech. And that's why the amount of reward as well as punishment for this is extraordinary, because these are purely spiritual, unlike the other things, like, for example, shaking a lulav, or eating kosher, or even kosher intimacy with your spouse. These are all with our bodies. They're in essence, they're secondary in comparison to the ones that are purely spiritual, which is learning Torah and using our mouth for holiness, or saying evil speech and cursing and lying and so on, which is sins. So then the Gaon of Vilna continues in this letter, this earth-shattering letter, and he says the following. He brings Ecclesiastes chapter 6 verse 7. Kol amal adam lefio. All man's toil is for his mouth. What does that mean? אמרו חכמינו זיכרונם לברכה שכל מצוותיו ותורותיו של אדם אינו מספיק למה שמוציא מפיו. The Gaon of Vilna brings another atomic bomb. Every verse in this, every sentence in this letter is an atomic bomb. Hence the reason why it's been studied literally millions and millions of times throughout the years, and still studied millions and millions of times daily throughout the Jewish community. The Gaon of Vilna says, this verse in Kohelet, in Ecclesiastes, that says that all man's toil is for his mouth, our sages of blessed memory say that, what does it mean? That all of man's mitzvot, all of man's teachings, meaning his Torah, the Torah that he learned, do not suffice to counterbalance what emerges from his mouth. Here the Gaon of Vilna has explained to us, even if you learn Torah, even if you do mitzvot, the amount of garbage that comes out of your mouth is more than the amount of good that you're generating in the world. Unless a person restrains themselves and works on it, there's no way they'll be able to keep up. There's no way. And the Gaon of Vilna is basing this on a midrash in Sefer Vayikra, chapter 4, verse 2, where he says that all of the man's accumulated in his life in terms of mitzvot and Torah cannot compensate for all of the sins that he made with his speech. And this is why in the Amidah, in the Tfilat Shmona Esrei, at the end, where we at the end of the prayer, where it says that we beg Hashem to open our heart so we could learn Torah, do mitzvot, and so on. And then it all starts with what? P'tach libi b'toratecha u'mitzvotecha tirdof nafshi. And then it says, Elokai netzol l'sheni mera. Before we start requesting all these things, we first say, Hashem, please guard my tongue from speaking evil. To teach us that in order for us to really be a vessel to do these mitzvot, to learn Torah, to teach Torah, and so on, we have to protect our speech. We need Hashem to help us to protect our speech. What is man's vocation in this world? The Gaon of Vilna says. This is another verse in the Torah. What is a man? מה אמונתו של אדם בעולם הזה? ישים עצמו כאילם. What should his vocation be in this world? He should make himself into a silent, like a mute. This comes from the Gemara Masechet Chulin, page 89a. A person should literally train themselves to act as if like they're mute. And one must seal his lips closed as tight as two millstones. So the question is, how come the Gaon of Vilna says that, compares a person's vocation, his work, to controlling what he talks? Says because if a person simply says, you know what, I'm not going to talk bad today. I'm not going to talk bad today. And that's it. That's all he does. He doesn't learn about it. He doesn't really know why he's not talking bad. He doesn't prepare himself. He doesn't delve over it. He doesn't meditate over it. He doesn't pray about it. She just thinks that from now on, Lashon Hara doesn't speak to me. Like these people that have they think that just because they put a band on their arm and say Lashon Hara doesn't speak to me, they think that that's going to stop them from saying Lashon Hara. Complete nonsense. All it is, it's going to make a lot of money to the people that are selling those bands. That's all it does. People are saying Lashon Hara while they're wearing those bands and while they're saying other things. But nonetheless, if a person treats this sin as significant as he does, he has to start treating the treatment of it like he does work. What does it mean? Work, you don't just show up to work and hope for the best if you want to be good at what you do. You have to train, maybe sometimes go to school, sometimes study, sometimes plan, sometimes develop certain things, have strategies. You have to do something, hustle and bustle in order to be good at what you do. Gaon of Vilna says, if you want to succeed in controlling your speech, you have to treat it like work. You have to treat it like work. Prepare, plan. What am I going to respond if somebody comes to me and they're going to say this to me? What am I going to respond if somebody says that to me? What am I going to respond if I see this? What am I going to respond if I think this? You have to start planning this stuff. How am I going to handle the day? How I'm going to handle the day? And you know what? The best solution that I heard is from Rabbi Reuven. What's the solution? Don't ever leave the house without having some type of kushya in your mind. Some type of Torah issue that you need to think about on your mind. Don't leave the house without having something in your mind. Now, of course, to some people that are new, or even some people that are old, this may seem like only catered for scholars. Not true. Everybody could do it. Read something, learn something, a little difficult that requires you to think. And when you leave the house, keep thinking about it. When you're on the bus, when you're in the car, when you're walking to the office, you're walking to go buy something to eat, have something in your mind. Why? First of all, if you're thinking about Torah, there's no room for all the garbage. Number two, it's going to protect your eyes, because if you're thinking about Torah, you're not going to want to look at anything wrong. You're thinking about Torah. Today, it's even easier to do that. Easier to do it. What do? If you have a smartphone like the vast majority of the world population, you go to the smartphone app store. You type BEEZRATHASHEM, Be'ezrat Hashem, press the go button. After that, you'll see a little blue box come up. Says Be'ezrat Hashem. That's the Be'ezrat Hashem app, Torah app. Press download. After you press download, press play. To what? First thing you see, press play. Every single time you leave the house, have this on and listen to a Shiur Torah at all times. Listen to a Shiur Torah. There's literally thousands and thousands of lectures on our Be'ezrat Hashem app, both in Hebrew and in English. Myself, Rabbi Ephraim, Rav Chaim also is there. We have a few other rabbis once in a while, but nonetheless, a lot of Torah. A lot of Torah there. Listen to Divrei Torah. That way, there's no room for Lashon Hara. There's no room for Lashon Hara. But if you listen to Divrei Torah while you're saying Lashon Hara, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. Sometimes people get so used to a certain rabbi or a speaker that they treat it like it's background music. They make sins while they listen to him. It's time to change the rabbi, go to somebody else, maybe perhaps miss this old rabbi for a little while, then eventually come back. But nonetheless, you have to get yourself together. You have to get yourself together. Because the damage is very, very severe. And we haven't even talked about the worst part. We haven't talked about the worst part. Now, the Rabbi Chaim Volozhin in Sefer Divrei Chaim, Parashat Azinu, says that a person should be very careful with his speech lest he kill himself. Why lest he kill himself? Because each person was given a certain amount of words to say in this world that are mundane, whether they are for the purpose of work or communication with your wife or husband or your colleagues or to buy something from the store. Everything except Torah. Torah, there's no limit of the amount of Torah that you can talk. Everything else, there is a limit. Which means if you talk a lot of nonsense, Rabbi Chaim Volozhin says, we learned from our teacher, which is the Gaon of Vilna. We learned from our teacher, you're killing yourself. One day, you want to tell your girlfriend a nice story. Hey, you're never going to believe the story. What happened? I didn't hear the story. Yeah, but she's dead. What happened? Oh, what happened is she died in the middle of the story because she said too many stories before that. That's what happens. That's what happens. People say, oh, I don't understand. How did this guy die so young? How did she die so young? They were in such good shape. They only ate vegan. They ran every day 60 miles. They did this. They did that. They died at such a young age. Well, they probably talked a lot. Probably the whole time. They're on the phone talking to somebody while they're running 60 miles a day, while they're eating all the different food. They're probably preaching about how, it's really healthy to eat grass like a cow every day, and it's exciting, and they can't be, and they want to share it with the world of how living on the earth is amazing. They like to talk about it, even though it's, and so on. They talk about it all day, and eventually they kill themselves at 45. That's what happens all day. A person that's not careful with their speech, Rabotai Yekarim, with all joking aside, is seriously killing themselves. Seriously killing themselves. And a person that wants to live, has to treat the words that come out of their mouth as something that could either be a weapon of mass destruction or something that's going to get them closer to Hashem. And if a person truly evaluates every single thing that they say, their whole life will change. The Mashkiach, Rabbi Yaron Reuven, says the following: I can tell you with certainty that if a person were to give thought to the power of words, were he to take care of to use his speech only for positive purposes, were a person to train himself to weigh the appropriateness and the purpose of his words before uttering them, and before saying each word, he would ponder whether this word will bring him closer to Hashem. If this would be the practice of a person, I could assure you that such a person would find the process of speaking as difficult as separating and lifting millstones. You hear that? If you're really careful about your speech, says one of the Gedolei Ador, it becomes difficult to talk nonsense. Difficult to talk. Why? If you care about your words, there's nothing to say. Unless it's Torah, there's literally nothing to say. There's nothing to say. Now I know, he says, that I sound like a fanatic in saying this, and deep down inside you're probably laughing at me. But believe me, I'm relating to you a powerful secret. One of the biggest rabbis in the last 100 years says this is the secret. If you're careful with your speech, you're going to live a different life. You're no longer going to care if every one of your people in the community is wearing a wig or not wearing a wig. And you're the only one that's wearing a mitpachat. You're not going to care if anybody is doing wrong or doing right. You're not going to care. Why? You're too focused on your avodat Hashem. If you see someone blatantly going against the Torah, part of your avodat Hashem will be to rebuke them and to help them do tshuva. But all of the chatter that happens that causes people to go astray and go against Hashem, there's simply not going to be any time for that. The argument you have with your spouse, simply not going to happen. Why? There's no time. There's no time to waste on arguing with anyone. Why? Because you don't say anything that's forbidden. You're only going to say good things. There's no time to say forbidden things. Now, although this seems impossible at first, you get used to it. You get used to it over time, and you start seeing yourself that you talk much less. You simply talk much less. As it says in the Gemara, Masechet Yoma, page 19b, V'dibarta bam, bam velo badvarim betelim. The Gemara says that in the mitzvah that we talk about every day in Shema Yisrael, Hashem says that you speak them, and not mundane things that are wasted. Where the Gemara says someone that has mundane speech is sins. Now, psak halacha is not exactly that, nonetheless, but some paskin like that. Paskin like the Gemara. Either way, the Gaon of Vilna says, be warned. Be warned to say these words. Why? Why? Now, we already heard a few warnings. We heard blessings, gone. Lashon hara increases. Prayers, gone. All types of damage. We heard a lot of things in this world. What else? Says the Gaon of Vilna, V'kol kafa kela, akol behevel piv shel dvarim betelim. And the entire heavenly punishment, known as kafa kela, the slingshot pouch, is all centered on the breath clouds of meaningless words, says the Gaon of Vilna in this letter to his wife. Says, kafa kela, all of that power that brings people, flings them from one side of the universe to the other, is the wind that comes from wasted speech. Val kol dibur hevel, tzarich litkalea misof ha'olam ve'ad sofo. And for each meaningless word, a person deserves to be slung from one end of the world to the other. All this is so concerning mere superfluous speech. Here the Gaon of Vilna gives not an atomic bomb, hydrogen bomb, biochemical bomb. For all of you that have a little bit of Yirat Shamayim or a lot of it, people are scared about Gehenom, scared about losing their Olam Haba, or perhaps scared about getting punished in this world. Rabotai, we're not going to do a shiur today about Kafa Kela. We'll reserve that for next week, Be'ezrat Hashem. But to give you a little bit of an understanding of why the Gaon of Vilna is crying over this, is like I said at the beginning of the lecture, this is not opinion. This is coming from knowledge. The Gaon of Vilna repeats the same type of teachings in his commentary on Proverbs, chapter 19, verse 7, and also chapter 22, verse 26, 22. Where in so many words he says that a person that speaks evil speech, mundane speech, wasted speech, is going to become like a person that's running away because they keep kicking him out. Who's kicking him out? Those very same destructive angels in Kafa Kela. Kafa Kela, Rabotai Yekarim, is a place of hopelessness, where a person makes certain types of sins where he does not have the merit to go to Gehenom. He does not have the merit to go to Gehenom. Why would going to Gehenom be a merit? Because most of Gehenom, the first 6 chambers of Gehenom, end at some point. Even though the sentences could be extremely long, could be years, centuries, thousands of years. Korach, for example, for all of those idiots that teach the public that the maximum sentence in Gehenom is 1 year, explain Korach, where the Gemara literally says he is in Gehenom with all of the people that followed him until this day. Last I checked, that was 3,333 years ago. So at the very least, we know that 3,333 years is not the end of Gehenom. And that was for Korach in his action. What is a whole life of terrible sins, of wasting seed, of Chilul Shabbat, of all. Korach didn't waste seed. Korach didn't violate Shabbat. He kept mitzvot, but he was an apikoros. And that's why he's in Gehenom until this day. 3,333 years in our time, who knows how many millions of years in heavenly time. But nonetheless, Rabotai Yekarim, some people do not have the merit to go to Gehenom. Why? Because they have sins like what the Gaon of Vilna is talking about. that put them in a place called Kaf HaKela. They put them in a place called Kaf HaKela. Kaf HaKela comes before Gehenom. Why is it considered hopeless? Because Avot Rabbi Natan in Perek Yud Bet 12, chapter 12, says that the souls of the wicked that go to Kaf HaKela are flung back and forth from one end of the universe to the other without any hope. Why without any hope? Because unlike the people in Gehenom that are told, you made such and such crime, you're going to go to Gehenom for X amount of time, you're going to be here for 3 days, you're going to be here for 3 months, you're going to be here for 3 years, you're going to be here for 300 years, or whatever the case may be. May Hashem have mercy on each one of us. The people at Kaf HaKela are not told how long they're going to be there. The people at Kaf HaKela do not know how long they're going to be there. The people at Kaf HaKela could be there literally for an amount of time that's incomprehensible to a human being, for things that they did not even know were sins. Now, where does this Kaf HaKela in the Torah? Kaf HaKela in the Torah, 100%. 100% in the Torah. The book of Samuel's. Book of Samuel's 1, chapter 25, verse 29. Avigail, the wife of David HaMelech, says to him, before she becomes his wife, and may he hurl away the soul of your enemies as one shoots a stone from Kaf HaKela. Avigail says that may Hashem take all of your enemies, David. May Hashem take of all of your enemies and put all of them in Kaf HaKela. Slingshot them. Slingshot their souls from one end of the earth to the other with no end and with no hope. That's what she wishes on the enemies of the Kodesh Kodeshim, the Melech Mashiach David HaMelech. That's what she says. That's one of our sources. Comes the Gemara Masechet Shabbat, page 152b. Rabbi Eliezer Omer that there are destructive angels in Kaf HaKela, and these destructive angels slingshot the souls of the wicked from one end of the earth, one end of the universe to the other, while there's one that's constantly whipping this wicked person endlessly. No place for him to rest. And those souls, as we hear from different midrashim and other places, sometimes get away and are seen by tzaddikim. As we saw, there's a midrash talks about Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva has multiple stories of how he saw souls from Kaf HaKela. In one particular case that's mentioned, very, very well known story, Rabbi Akiva, after he already became the biggest rabbi in the world, 24,000 students, he is Kodesh Kodeshim. He's as great as you can possibly be. He's at the 50th level of Kedusha. His eyes became so holy, he started seeing things that were not part of this world. And one day he's walking, and he sees a person that's full of black tar, completely black from top to white, top to bottom, carrying pieces of wood and running like a horse. Back and forth, running, taking more wood, running. Rabbi Akiva sees him, stop, and the person doesn't stop. But Rabbi Akiva says, I commend you to stop. Using the power of the Torah. The person stops. He says, why do you run like this? Why do you run like this? If it is your boss is doing this to you and he's such a hard boss, come out, work for me. I won't make you work that much. If it's poverty, come, I'll give you money, I have money. The person says to him, please don't slow me down, I need to leave. Why do you need to leave? Who are you running from? Why are you working so hard? He says, this is what I do every day of my life. I'm not from this world, he says to him. I am a person that's in Kaf HaKela, and my punishment is to every day go, cut wood, take the pieces of wood, put it on fire, and then the angels burn me in them. Hashem yishmo v'yatzil. And then they put life back into me, and then I do it all over again. And every time I stop, they hit me and make it even worse. So please don't slow me down. Rabbi Akiva says to him, why? Why did you get such a punishment? He says, because I was a very evil person in the world. I was a very evil person. He said, what did you do? He says, I was a tax collector. I used to go to the Jewish people and take advantage of them, especially the poor people. I made friends with all of the rich people, so I didn't bother them. But I went and I instituted a lot of tough taxes on all the poor people. And everyone hated me, and surely I did all types of other crimes. He says, well, what could save you? What could save you? He said, nothing can save me. He said, something has to be able to save you. He says, I heard one time, but this is not possible, he says. I heard one time that if somebody would ever say Kaddish on me, if a son of mine would ever say Kaddish on me, then they would be able to take me out of Kafakela, but I don't have a son. I left the woman I was married to. She was pregnant when I left, but I don't know if I have a son. And if I have a son, surely he's not religious because that's not the life that I have. Rabbi Akiva says to him, what is your name? And he gives him the name. He says, where did you live? And he tells him where he lived. He never heard of such a name, and he never heard of such a place. But Rabbi Akiva, in his level, knew that this was shown to him for a reason. And he says, I'm going to save you. I'm going to get you out of here. And Rabbi Akiva starts traveling, looking for this foreign place, and he travels all over the place and eventually gets to that town. And he asks about this person. And as soon as he asks the person, do you know such and such? And the person says, machshimo v'zicho, this rashai. We hate him, he's a piece of garbage. He died, he's this, he's that. Okay, fine. Everybody hated him. So, does he have a son? Yay, machshimo v'zicho. His son is even worse than the father. There's no sin that he doesn't make. Does he have a wife? Yay, machshima v'zicha. She's also evil. Everybody hates the whole family. Long story short, he gets to see this boy. You see the boy doesn't know how to read, doesn't know how to write, doesn't know nothing, doesn't know any mitzvot, zero. But this kid is the only ticket for the father that's suffering in Kafakela for endless amount of time with no end. Rabbi Akiva takes the boy and tries to teach him Torah. Every day he spends the whole day with him, and the kid forgets everything that they learned. Aleph, 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 Aleph. Aleph, Aleph. The whole day teaching him Aleph. The next day, okay, we're going to learn about Bet. What's that? After Aleph, what's Aleph? Rabbi Akiva sees that the kid simply cannot learn nothing. Cannot learn Aleph Bet, cannot learn mitzvot, cannot learn anything. Rabbi Akiva cries and fasts for 40 days over this boy to have the mercy of Hashem open up. Have the mercy of Hashem open up for this boy to let him learn Torah, to let him learn. After 40 days of crying and praying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu over this young boy, the boy is able to learn. His mind opens up and he teaches him the entire alphabet, and within a short period of time he teaches him how to pray. He gets him to pray, to come to pray at the Bet Knesset. And the kid says Kaddish for the first time in his life over his father. The next day, Rabbi Akiva sees the man, and the man looks much better, no longer black, and says to him, thank you, Rabbi Akiva, you've saved me. I now have the merit to go to Gaon. But no longer Kafakela. And there are countless stories like this. There's an entire book full of stories like this by Rabbi Yehuda. He used to talk to these souls just 100 years ago, 150 years ago. We're not talking about 2,000 years ago. Ruchot Mesaprot, the Sefer by Rabbi Yehuda, the entire book is full of this stuff. Am Yisrael has lived with complete knowledge of this Kafakela and Genom and Chibut HaKever from the beginning of time. This is not new. It may be new to you, maybe new to your friends, but this is not new in the Torah. This is nothing new. The point is, Rabotai, that this Kafakela, we're going to go extensively into it, Be'ezrat Hashem, next week. What it means, what happens, who, what, when, even more extensive than what we're talking about. Perhaps we'll have the merit to have something similar to what we did about Genom. Why? Because the Gaon of Vilna is mentioning it multiple times in this lecture for a reason. A person needs to know the magnitude of the punishment in order to run away from the sin. Needless to say, they need to know the magnitude of the punishment in order to evaluate the sin correctly and realize that it's not worth it. The Gaon of Vilna is warning us time and time again, Rabotai Karim. Warning us time and time again. And it's important for us to know that if we are careful with our words, all of this can be used to our benefit to change our life for the better. Our marriage will get better. Our relationships at work will get better. Our relationship with Hashem will get better. Our relationship with our kids will get better. Everything in our life will get better. If we're not careful with our words, and in fact, we allow small talk to pass through our lips like a bus station, when the time comes where someone is going to bring us an opportunity to say juicy lashon hara, juicy lies and deception, or all types of forbidden speech, we're not going to have any type of protective measures to control ourselves, meaning that the mundane will lead to the outright forbidden. The small will lead to the worst of the worst. So a person needs to know whether they are young or old, male or female. Controlling your speech is one of the main ways to serve Hashem. The old saying goes, if you have nothing good to say, don't say anything at all. This is a little bit different. If you have nothing productive to say in accordance to the Torah, don't say anything at all, because if you do, it'll cost you dearly. It'll hurt you dearly. If you're talking about your job with someone that could actually help you, someone that's part of your work, a customer, your boss, an employee, it's necessary. If it's a matter of respect, for the sake of maintaining a relationship and so on, you could do it. But comes Rabbi Chaim Volozhin, the student of the Gaon of Vilna, in the Sefer Keterosh, in Ot Ein, says that even those that are allowed, such as for work and for honor, our teacher, the Gaon of Vilna, told us even those you should limit, meaning even the permissible you should limit. Torah, obviously, as much as you want, as long as you know how to speak Torah, as long as you know Torah to speak and not just go into things that are complete nonsense. Things that are necessary, go ahead and do them, but be careful not to be too comfortable to just make everything allowed. But surely the things that are forbidden, you have to run away from like they're a plague. You have to run away from them like they are cancer, AIDS, and all the other diseases known to man combined. Needless to say, things that are just a waste of time, waste of speech, and so on, you have to run away from. You have to run away from, because the damage is much greater than it looks. So Be'ezrat Hashem will have the courage to start taking this into account, not only in our day-to-day relationships with people that we see face to face, but also with our relationships on the internet. People that like to waste their time on the internet, talk about absolutely nothing. You have to control yourself, because if you control yourselves, your lives will change for the better. If you don't control yourselves, you're simply your own worst enemy. Be'ezrat Hashem will succeed. Be'ezrat Hashem will succeed doing it, will succeed teaching it. And tomorrow, Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll work on some other things. We'll talk about some other things. And next week, Be'ezrat Hashem will go further from this point, this Kafakela point, with a little bit more details of what it means, what it entails, perhaps things that you guys have never heard before, that will also shake the ground that we walk on. But nonetheless, everybody needs to know the full truth, so at least they can make educated decisions. So when the day comes and HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends his Mashiach, and his name is all over the world, and everyone says, Adonai Echad U'Shmo Echad, you're not going to act surprised. You're not going to be surprised because you've been preparing for that day your whole life. So B'ezrat Hashem, we'll continue to learn, we'll continue to teach, control ourselves, get better. And that way, Rabotai Yekarim, when the time comes, we will be the ones that celebrate because of all the hard work we put in. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'Amen.
Seven years of lectures. Seven months of film editing. Countless hours of study by two rabbis. Information we received over 3,000 years ago. All for this moment. Whom had greed? The movie.
There's a small member in your body. It shouldn't take over your whole life. If you satiate it, you're never going to have enough.
The sulfur clamp, when it gets a hold of something, it does not let go.
Time for us to rectify what we have done.
Normal numbers should be somewhere around 20 million or higher.
You're never going to have control of it. If you start only feed it when it's permissible, according to the Torah.
Pornography is as addictive as crack cocaine.
You're always going to be happy, including this world and the next. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'Amen.